All right. Chana, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just give us just a second. I got some people out there. A lot of people out
Okay.
there.
We're going to put it on hold just for a second. We got people coming in.
Sounds good.
Yeah, David, make sure Ed Tatro has a donut.
Yes, we must feed Ed.
You ready? Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you had a good night's sleep and you're ready for another day of opening up cans of worms. Because basically that's what we've been doing here. There's a lot of new material like we talked about yesterday, and this young lady is going to give us a presentation here, and she's got some new material that she presented several years ago, but it just hasn't gotten out to everybody. So let me introduce her. This is Chana Gail S. Willis, has spoken several conferences, public and private venues, and to students on the JFK topic, and her dad's 91-year life story from the Blackland prairies of cotton fields in Dallas County to making camera lenses for space satellites to equipping U-2 space planes with aerial photo equipment. Willis is the daughter of Freddie Philman Phil Spainhouer, and Phil served in the United States Navy from 1941 to 1965. He worked with Photo Intelligence, the Office of Naval Intelligence, Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, Aerial Film Company, Dallas Police Department, and Dallas Fire Department. He led the awarded VAP 62 photo recon mission over Cuba during the Cold War in the early 1960s. Phil's last duty was aboard the USS Enterprise with John McCain and the Sixth Fleet in the spring of 1963 during the heightened tensions with Russia. Of course, that hasn't changed right now. We've just done about 59-year degree turn. Phil survived an airplane crash in the Antarctica on the second day of Operation Deep Freeze, 1955 to 1956. As an old Antarctic pioneer, he was the first group of men to ever winter over the southern continent as members of the Advance Party, building a permanent base at McMurdo Sound under Admiral E.R. Zumwalt and Admiral Dufek, Byrd's cousin, Harold Dryhole Byrd, who owned the Texas School Book Depository building. After retiring from the Navy on November 23rd, 1963, Phil wrote and told his daughter and wife he continued intelligence work while holding civilian and civil service jobs. Willis was a teenager in 1976. In 1978, even assisted her father in photo labs at the Dallas City Hall, learning how to develop film, make new negatives from spliced originals, and process some of the Dallas Police Department evidence duplication for the House Senate Select Committee on Assassinations. Chana, a 1983 graduate of Texas Tech University, has a background in business administration and finance, state of Texas economics development and real estate. She also has an additional training from TEACS / Texas A&M as a public information officer. Willis's presentation provides an update on two previous public releases from her 2017 speech, Chana Willis, Her Father's Life Story on YouTube, and materials presented by renowned researcher Ralph Thomas in his article, Hidden Photographer Behind the Picket Fence on the Grassy Knoll, updated confirmations, and the other Zapruder film, located at this link, http://tiny.cc/5e1quz.x. So it is my pleasure to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Chana Willis.
Folks, hang on a second, we still got a little Zoom problem, right? Yeah.
I can't hear what he said.
We have a little technical problem. We're going to try to fix it right now.
Okay, sounds great. Let me know when I'm good to go.
We will. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do they have the visual or just the audio only?
We need to get people in the room, and then we need to fix a little technical. It's probably with photography, but we're trying to figure that out right now.
Okay, got a hot mic.
You do. So be careful what you say.
Well, I could take this opportunity to thank Olney College and Professor David Denton for the invitation today. And Casey, thank you, and David Knight for helping me prepare for this and be a little bit brave. I am here today. Basically, I've spoken a few times, but I'm going to be giving a massive amount of evidence showing everything I've said in the past with actual documentations and pictures and proof. And I'm still uncovering things from Dad's cellar that surprises me. In the past, I have talked at great length for folks that have inspired me to keep digging and figure out where my dad's story fits in to all these renowned researchers. When people ask me if I'm a lone nutter or conspiracy theorist, I have to raise my hand and go, I'm neither one. I lived this growing up and I was taught not to look into it. I was scared to look into it. And I'm going to play an audio of my dad's voice warning me to not talk about it. And that's how I'd like to start off. So let me get here to shared screen and play that
ready?
real quick.
No, we're still not ready.
Okay. Hold on to that, Chana.
Okay.
And let me lock you into a time limit because we're, what are we, 40 minutes, David?
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Okay.
Can I go ahead and just play the audio of this?
Nothing right now because we're still trying to get everybody online.
Okay.
We not only have an in-house conference going on, but we also have a Zoom meeting going on. We're trying to put those together.
Okay.
Hey, Craig. Yeah.
Well, Shauna, it's good to get you on here. I know I probably left 2 or 3 emails or at least some messages on the phone for you. So you can, when you get those, just get rid of them.
Okay. It was a late night last night.
I can't even begin to tell you what was going on with us. And
I got your text at 1:30. I'm wow, you're really putting in some late hours on this.
well, before we actually go on here, it's good to see all you people up here this early in the morning on Saturday. And I know you probably sit back saying, you know, I've got better things to do. You probably do, but you've got some really fantastic people that are here today, and the programs that we're presenting for you are, you know, I would give a lifetime, and I have, to see these people and talk to them. And you are in a really unique situation, and people have asked us over the years, is there anything more on the Kennedy assassination? Well, every year we get something new. And very quickly, I know on the 50th anniversary, my wife kind of looked at me and she goes, well, are we done? I said, are we done? Are you kidding me? They're just opening the archives. So maybe another 50 years, right? Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out. I'll be 122.
Once we get started, will I still have my 45 minutes?
You certainly will.
Thank you.
We got it? All right, we do have the okay. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome for Chana Gail Willis.
Thank you. I was giving thanks to folks who have inspired me along the way and who I've met when I first time I came out with my dad's story a few weeks after he died. This is not to recapture that because that's out there on the internet. What I want to achieve today is actually showing you evidence to back up things that I grew up experiencing. And the way I came up with this was by accident. I was taught not to look into this when I was a child. And last year, if you can see on the screen, David, give me a thumbs up when you can see it on the screen. Is it there?
Not yet. He can't give you a thumbs up, but we got you audio.
Okay.
Okay, it's on the screen, but he can't give you a thumbs up right now.
Okay. Jack Roth called me. He is a author and producer filmmaker, and he is issuing releasing a book in November of this fall called Ripples in Time. He selected 25 people to interview, and I believe Mr. Denton is one of those, as well as St. John Hunt and some others. Of their story, each person gets one chapter, and it's hard in 45 minutes, much less one chapter, to get 91-year life story between two pieces of cardboard on paper. So I'm going to focus on just the assassination and how my dad got involved before, during, and after, by no real choice of his own. And when I read the draft from Jack Roth, I was stunned because I was expecting to see, Phil Spainhouer at the top, and it had my name. And he said, I had to tell the story of what happened through the eyes of a small child. And I was actually surprised. This is me as a small child. I was born at the Jacksonville Naval Air Station Base, and my dad was Master Chief Freddie Philman Spainhouer. He married my mother when he was 25. He married my mother when he was 35. My mother was 21. And he had a long and storied career in the Navy. As a matter of fact, he was in Tulagi Bay with Kennedy during World War II, right before PT 109. Some of the things he did when he was in the Navy was, this is a picture of him. And there's a lot of pictures he left me when he died that were marked restricted. I know it's backwards in this. It says, official photography not for publication by order of the Chief of Naval Operations, restricted. So when I worked, and this is another picture of him with the aerial film canisters working at Aerocolor. It was a front. And then
Shannon,
I had
can you hear
pictures
me?
of what. Yes.
All right, hold on. All right, go ahead.
Do we have audio, a visual for me now?
We have.
Am I on the screen or only audio?
We have you on screen now and also audio, both.
Okay. So did you see the pictures, or have you seen the pictures I've shown so far?
No, go ahead. Show them one more time on that. Okay.
So Jack Roth was telling the story from the eyes of a small child, from the time I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, till after my dad's death. This is my dad at processing aerial film. You notice canisters about the size of oatmeal canisters, and he rigged up systems on YouTube planes on how to get the cameras to work and rail systems. And when he was In the Mediterranean Sea on the USS Enterprise, his back went out from the airplane crash in the Antarctic. And so he had to rig up a system in Gary Power's plane to where he would know the right humidity, plane speed, and the altitude to get a clear picture at, of what we were going into Russia for. And this was at the height of the Cold War, which is part of what led to the assassination. It was a cascade of events. And everyone knows that Gary Powers was shot down over Russia, flying 70,000 feet up. But nobody ever asked, why was he there? And I asked Dad, and he said, well, with my high school education at Garland High School, I took geometry. And he figured out ways to, if they went in and took a picture of a certain radio tower at a certain time of day at a 90-degree angle, he said he could compute the height of the tower based upon the shadows and would know what frequency the Russians were transmitting on. Here's another picture of Dad right there. So when he dies, he leaves me all these things to go through, and it started out with a box of letters from my grandmother, over 400 letters, and I've got each one in a binder. And it was letters he wrote home from December of 41 through his time in the Antarctic. Back when he married later in life, because he didn't want to drag a wife around, his DD 214, when he went to Naval Intelligence School, was completely stripped of every place he went, from Korea to World War II to Point Mugu, Guam, and everything. And I was told that, and this is dated October 31st, 1963. That was the same date that my grandfather got his will updated, because my father was told when he figured out what was going on, and he did not complete the assignment in Dallas, that he would be dead, my mom would be dead, my brother and I would be dead, and his parents would be dead. So this is one of his folders that he had, and inside of it was aerials showing the process by Aero Color Firm. That was a front firm, and from 70,000 feet up of downtown Dallas. And let's see, I'm sure there's Dealey Plaza right there. And I don't know what time frame these photos were taken, but this is how big the aerial film was. The film could be up to 125 to 200 feet long, and they would cut the negative and process it, and then they would make a positive from the negative. That's one of the negatives of downtown. They make a positive like he did over Vape 62, and they would paste all these up on the wall 10 feet by 10 feet when he was doing it over Cuba. And the film over Cuba, or even Washington, D.C., he would identify and circle where the missiles were. This is Washington, D.C. that he did, which we, of course, can't see now because Google blurs it out.
Shauna, hold on just a second. You might hold
Yes.
those up for about two or three more seconds so that we can see them.
Okay, this is Washington, D.C. And I do not know the time frame this was taken. He was at Naval Intelligence School in 1960, 59 and 60, when my mother was pregnant with me. And this is another one of Washington, D.C. Of course, we can't see now. This was that time frame when he was in Naval Intelligence School. This is actually one I got concerned with, and I tried to turn it back into the Navy intelligence. They didn't care to hear from me. So I found out from Admiral Zumwalt before he passed that it was declassified. This is another one. This is a big one in Cuba. This is actually not from the internet. This is a photo print my dad had in his files. And this is his book marked Secret. His binder that he kept. And this is actually the missile he circled for the president in Cuba right before Bay of Pigs. This is missile launchers. He said at one point they were flying so low over the area where all this was going on that there was an outhouse that didn't have a lid on it, and the guy was shooting them the bird, which I found pretty funny because he did write about some of this stuff. Here's another one. Brady Spainhouer, U.S. Naval Intelligence, Secret, Air Intelligence. And he had to compute how to instruct the pilots if the photographer could not go along, how they would push a button to take the pictures. And he rigged up the camera system. The way he explained it to me, it was a rail system in a half circle, and the camera was weighed. And if you knew the speed of the plane, the altitude and humidity, the camera would go by the open door and trip the shutter and go back up, and there would be a spring at the top, and the camera would come back down. And every time it pushed past the door, it would take another picture and advance the film roll. Then some of the material I got from him at it says official photography, not operations. So when I worked at Dallas Semiconductor managing investor relations, there was a board banquet meeting that night, and Admiral Zumwalt had been chief of naval operations, was on our board. And my husband served in the Army 25 years. So the president of the company, Vin Prothro, rest in peace, sat us next to Bud and Musa Zumwalt. And he had set up a center for Vietnam studies. And he's, of course, the head of the former retired, just got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And he leans over and wipes his mouth and he goes, you know, you need to finish that book you started with your dad. And I about choked. And he said, you need to do this to shed sunshine for the mistakes we've made, because I ordered Agent Orange and the company misled me. And I did not know the full consequences of it, but I was the leader. It was my decision. I had to own it, because when I employed the use of that to exfoliate jungle in Vietnam, my son was exposed to it, and my son died from my decision. And before he died, I wrote a book with him. And if you ever run into anyone from the effects of Agent Orange, tell them I am profoundly sorry, but as a leader, I had to be accountable. And 3 months later, he got a tumor, mesothelioma, from the asbestos in the naval shipyards, and died in spring of 2000. So I took that to heart, and I talked to Dad about it. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that Dad wanted me to do in sharing his story after he was gone. He scared me so much when I was growing up not to talk. And I'm going to let you listen to an audio. I'm going to open it up here and listen to an audio. Can you hear that?
No, we cannot.
Okay, hold on. I am sharing now. Can you hear it?
No, Shanna,
Okay.
what you need to do is change your microphone input.
Change
how
my
you do
microphone
that-
to what?
Okay, you go to the microphone, little up arrow where it says mute, and you click that up arrow, and then you're going to click same as system.
The speech, you're to hear, to listen and hear, but when it comes down to speech, you're to be a no-no. You don't speak to anybody about anything.
Right.
And I got an idea that this outfit that knows me and had me working for them for years has just fallen down, and Steve's probably maybe just a test to find out.
If he's approachable to do the same thing.
Yeah,
If he can handle the stress.
that's the reason I was telling you, don't mention too much about me in my lifetime. You can mention that I went through Naval Intelligence School and that I retired from the Navy as a Master Chief of Intelligence, but that's it. This I got out in civilian life is a no-no.
That probably put a lot of pressure on you some years.
Huh?
I said that probably put a lot of pressure on
You
you.
put a
some
lot of pressure on me before I got around to you to keep quiet. Boy, I was scared to death. when I was out at Texas Instruments, I was the result of 3 top people out there getting fired.
Switch your microphone
Here-
back to,
Yeah, you can hear me
there
now?
you go. Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's one of the things Dad told me when I found out and asked him that day. Mother was going to play bingo, and I said, Daddy, I've been taking notes and recording you like you wanted me to, and you've been writing, but you scared me, and I really just need to know. And he couldn't talk in the house, so we went outside. There's reasons he couldn't talk in the house. And I said, Dad, I know you were down there that day, and I know you thought it was an operation to just film the president, increase security. And then when you found out, you told me that one person on your team committed suicide, one went crazy, and you were afraid of going crazy. And after Dallas, the operation was disbanded, and everyone eventually within a year or less was moved out of Dallas. He got to stay there because he was raised in Dallas County. His parents were there and all his siblings. He had a wife now and small children, and he begged to get out. But what he was talking about in that audio, he said, what he did, you never get out. Some of his supervisors in the military and civilian life, he had a higher classification of security than they did. He took pictures at the War Tribunal crime hangings. He was at Guam. He was involved in the space program, making lenses. He would train astronauts like Chaffee, who he had to watch burn up on the Apollo launch pad. There was other men he trained. He did not want to be a front person. He was behind person. So he told me that, and I'm getting nervous. I apologize. This is always nervous for me to talk about because of his warnings. He said, he loved his country and he had no choice, and he almost took it to the grave. But the reason he talked is because he felt like they forgot him after he got stomach cancer in 2008. And it took me working with a congressman to go back physically to Washington to get someone to come and debrief him so he could die in peace in 2014. And the Dallas FBI office wouldn't help us. This congressman said it was the most difficult thing. And in Dad's writings, he wrote, even when Admiral Byrd wanted some things to get to the Antarctic, it took months to get some things. Congress was not cooperating. And Dad went over to the National Archives and came back that afternoon. And Admiral Byrd asked him, how did he get this document? And Dad says, you don't need to ask. I just got it. And that was in 1955. Dad was friends with Admiral Byrd. His cousin was Harold Byrd, nicknamed DH for dry hole in the oil industry because he hit a lot of dry holes. And he wanted some money from his cousin who owned the school book depository. And his cousin and Admiral Byrd did not get along. And he didn't get the money he needed. So Dad would tell me these long, stretchy stories of how Life Magazine, National Science Foundation, and all these others helped fund the trip to the Antarctic. Because when we plan things to protect our government and our nation, there are things that we don't need out there that helps us stay free. You don't tell everyone your Hail Mary pass when you're on a football team. And you don't let the enemy know what you have to protect yourselves. But now we know some things from 50 years ago that have been declassified. We needed triangulation for our space program because the world is round. So we had a base in Florida, a base in Texas, and a base in the Antarctic to help work with putting these satellites around the world for 20 years that have communication in them and defense technologies and weather, and now everything running through the internet. We talked at length about this, and he said that he was filming that day and he told me where he went. And I have some additional information, and I'm still pulling up things before I go through my files. When he finished Naval Intelligence School, he was given I'm going to show you his black book, but he was given a thing called cosmic clearance. Well, I found this one this morning and from the seller this summer, and I've not looked at it. I'm going to give you some names I don't know if any of these names in his black book fit into what we're talking about or not. This is David Decker. He too had a cosmic clearance. This is Albert Raymond Fallstitch. He too had a cosmic clearance. Frank Buchan. He too had a cosmic clearance. I've never shown this and I haven't read it before today. And Clark and other clearances. And then here's the name of his sister and brothers. And the reason I'm shaking is because I've not seen this before until this morning. But when he was on the USS Enterprise with John McCain, Russia had said they would get out of Cuba. We said we would. And in the spring of '63, when the Enterprise launched, we were closer to Cuban waters than we were Florida. And they laid some of the warheads out on the deck. And Dad was going to do photography of them and asked to turn off the radar so nothing would happen and leave two on. They cleared the airspace, commercial airspace, and two blips. This is how Dad explained it. Started coming across the radar. At that point, two Russian MiGs flew over the deck of the Enterprise, and Russia knew we were still there, and we knew Russia was still there. And that's when the tensions started getting heightened. And the Sixth Fleet was deployed to the Mediterranean Sea to do some blockades of merchant ships that really had military on it from Russia. Dad's back went out and they flew him from Greece to Bethesda back to Florida where I was born in March of '63. And he had had some surgery on his back. He had had his time in duty. They were going to retire him. They said, we got to get you to Dallas. That's when everything started in March of '63 on this planning. Because when the Navy and the CIA was going into Cuba, we were 4 hours late. Dad said, I know why we were 4 hours late. They were arguing, the brass was arguing with Kennedy up there. And now understand, this is a man my dad was in Tulagi Bay with. Imagine someone you worked with is now president of the nation. He said the pilots in World War II had flight jackets, and on the inside were maps and different languages. If you find this down pilot, the American government would give you an ungodly sum of money to rescue them. The pilots that were assigned to go into Cuba wanted those flight jackets, and they were at the Smithsonian, and Dad knew where, at the National Archives. It took 2 hours to get from Jacksonville Naval Air Station Base to Washington and 2 hours back for them to have their jackets. Dad said there's a lot of other reasons they were 4 hours late, but that's the 4 hours. And I don't have any credibility proof or anything for this. That's just what he told me. So he gets discharged from the Navy. We come to Dallas, November '63, stay with November 4th. It's a Thursday, I believe. Stay with my grandparents 2 weeks. Our furniture and everything is in storage with the military. And we get a house close to downtown Dallas. I'm almost 4 years old. My brother's almost 5. And the first weekend there, a man knocks on the door, and Dad told me this story so many times I haven't memorized. My mother's even told me without my dad around. Knock on the door on Riverway. A man hands Dad a piece of paper. His name was Joe. He said, this is where you go work next week, the week of the assassination. He was embedded at TI, and his supervisors didn't know it. So I found this today for the first time. I don't know what it means, and you're probably reading it backwards, but it's, and Sunday is 1000 to 1445, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's question mark. And I don't know if it's, I have no idea what it is.
Chana, when you hold something up to the camera, it blocks your microphone, so we can't hear what you're saying.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
you
right
hear me?
now we can.
Okay. So there's the week of the assassination, and there on Friday, he's got 2 question marks. I've not held this, opened this, or read this in my life until today, pulling things out for this speech. So the next thing I decided to do is I said, well, when I was talking to him about this, and the day I found out He said, I can't talk about it, but I'll answer your question, yes or no. I said, was Lee on your team? He said, yes. I said, did Lee fire a gun that day? He said, no. I said, did Lee handle a gun that day? He said, yes. He said, the way this worked, and he wrote about it, and I'm trying to finish this, is that 3 people would always be trained for your job. If something happened to you, someone else could come back in. Hence probably the thing about 2 people that look like Lee at the theater. No one team knew what the others were doing or talking about. So I'm going to share a screen here of some things that Dad said. My dear beloved daughter, it's very important to my soon ending earthly life to write you concerning my need of your help in closing my earthly journey. I'm so happy with you volunteering to help in getting my book in its proper final stage of existence. I need to inform you as to why some of the book's content exists as it does. And he was worried about his grammar and things like that. I believe his gateway into the CIA, and I don't think the Navy knew it, was in 1947 when he went back in the Navy after World War II. My Aunt Ruby was a member of the OSS, and so was his cousin Jesse Ray. We'll go through here and show you some other things. And I apologize. I'm going to get to questions and answers in just a moment. Share screen. Okay, share. Okay, are you seeing the shared screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, that's Dad and his Navy career, what he looked like. He was really amazing with his memory. Here's an example. He typed his tour of duty from 41 to 58. Every port he went to, when he got there and when he departed. His ability to type is partly what got him to the Antarctic. He typed this from memory. Who does that? From the Antarctic to the Edisto and the Antarctica, everything in the war. And when he finished it, Pensacola 57, Vape 62, 60, going to the different deployments he had. The Enterprise, February 1st, 1963, departed on March 21st, 63, arrived at the Naval Hospital in Naples, went to Frankfurt, Germany, got to Fort Dix, and then got back to Jacksonville. Let's see here. This is him after the war. I'm gonna scoot out here a little bit so you can read this. This is, I didn't think I was injured seriously from the back because it stabilized itself. So when he had his back surgery and got out after the assassination, he went to work for the City of Dallas Police Department. He should have never been approved because of his back surgery, but the day he had his medical, the regular city physician was not there, and a lady was there and passed his physical. And she said, that's okay, Chief. Us Navy people got to stick together. So this is his from his shirt for the fire department. And this is Dad in the Antarctic, the airplane crash that he was in. It's on the internet. It's Bureau 142424 was the plane. And this is him at Admiral Byrd's tombstone in Washington. I took that picture when I was in high school. I've already showed you the top secret items. And he got orders to go to Vape 62 in Jacksonville. That's some of his writings. This is his other little black book that he has. I'm going to zoom in on this. It's the first one. I didn't know he had 2 of them. And I opened it up, and here's some names of people that were in his Naval Intelligence School in Washington, D.C., and where they were assigned when they graduated. It was a class E2, class of 59, the first enlisted men instead of officers going through naval intelligence. And I don't know if any of them, the names are important, book out Oliver, Clark, Wilson, a bunch of different names. I'll be willing to put this in a Dropbox on the internet and share it with everyone. I actually went through and have their service numbers and documentation that of where they went, and where they went afterwards if they were ready. So that's it in a nutshell. As far as a lot of the key information, I would like to say that when I teach students, I teach them that we have the people that elect the government, and that under the government, you have the military for the people and the intel that protects the government. And then under both of those, we have the rogue area fighting, everybody fighting each other. I know how he got into it. Mother is still telling me some things. You know, your father was arrested. And I said, what for? Yeah, early when he got back in the Navy, he was arrested with a team of 5, got thrown in the Navy brig for 30 days. So what for? Counterfeiting identification cards. And he would teach me when I was in the photo lab down there how to do some of this. And when we processed some of the film for the House Select Committee on Assassination, I had several copies of those, and the arrest report, which is interesting, shows this is the copy I have. It's up in a safe, not on my property. And notice this area right here. There is nothing in this area under the word wounded. Now I'm going to show you the copy that is from the archives of University of North Texas. Share screen. This is the one from the University of North Texas. The one without this on it says deceased. The one without that on there is not done. Also, I found evidence where Oswald was never arraigned for the killing of President Kennedy. Didn't think it was necessary because they'd already arraigned him for just killing. It says, let me get this over here. It says, Oswald was arraigned before Justice of the Peace David L. Johnson in Dallas for killing Tippit. Okay. He was held without bail. Assistant District Attorney previously authorized the filing of a complaint against Oswald. He authorized the filing of a complaint of murder of President Kennedy. This complaint was filed November 22nd, 1963. However, in view of the previous charges against Oswald, meaning Tippit, that they never followed through. It was never deemed necessary to arraign Oswald for the killing of President Kennedy, according to documents released. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I have. This is my dad's belt when he was with the Dallas Police Department, and his handcuffs. And some of his black dust he would use. One time, you need 5 points for conviction on a fingerprint. He taught me a lot of his forensic skills that I've used to solve some crimes for kidnappings. You need 5 points. He got one off of a Coke tab can one time to convict a murderer. I don't know what these were used for. I find them interesting. He left all kinds of little toys for me. All his cameras that he took. The things that are most concerning to me is the surgical instruments he left behind. He said sometimes things would be in teeth that they would need to remove. This is his patch from his badge. He was with the fire department as photo chief till 1988. Then he did a lot of, my family kind of felt the brunt of his anger and torment. He became really quiet, and understand he was a playboy till he was 35. And this happened and it changed him a lot. I don't know what else to add. I want to spread sunshine on the story. I want to know where this fits in. He drove down Highway 78 to First National Bank in Garland. And I have his black trench coat. We recreated that. It was Navy issued. I have a lot of data going around in my head right now. It's probably not organized how I presented it, but I'm willing to take any questions and answers. I can show you a couple of more things that I want to get back to and show you guys. The one thing he did tell me is that when the boxes were found on the 6th floor and they went up there, he said he knew where the gun was, where it was positioned and planted, that the police came up 2 days later and reconstructed where they believed the boxes were. So you have 2 sets of film at the University of North Texas archives, and they give you the negative and the positive, and they give you the back of it. This is proof that the police reconstructed how those boxes they think they looked on the day of the assassination. Note this picture was taken on November 25th. So the police on day 2 were already trying to make their narrative fit what they believed happened. And I have additional proof of that. All this can be dropped in a Dropbox. I guess I want to open the floor up to questions.
Shanna, let me throw this out at you. I know the audience here and the audience online are probably want to focus on where your dad was on November 22nd and how he got to that position and what his orders were and what happened behind that fence on the grassy knoll.
I do not know if he was wearing that black trench coat or not, but I have it. He was behind the fence, and all my years of living until he died, he was 91, I was 54. So when he died, he took me down there after we had worked on some of the film in the basement of Dallas City Hall. They were pulling things for a House Select Committee on Assassination. He only took me down there one time behind the picket fence. And he was filming. I don't know if he passed the film off to someone. He didn't like to talk about it, but years later, when I wasn't quite figuring things out, when I started digging into this, I would remember conversations I had with him. He's sitting in the living room and he said, and I thought it was really weird. He said, he was teaching me about guns and weapons, and someone had robbed our house about 2 years after this and had taken guns out of our attic. And I walked in at 7 years old to Rachel's garage door and came face to face with these burglars. Some of the guns were taken, some were not. But Dad's at that point said, you know, they make a bullet that can go in and it's so powerful. It's got something on it and it explodes. And when it comes out the back, the hole is so much larger than when it goes in. And he was holding his hand over his head like this. I didn't know what that meant till I met Robert Groden and saw his speech, and I got really sick to my stomach realizing what my dad was describing, what he saw through his camera lens that day. He did tell me he went straight to Jesse Ray Houston, president of First National Bank in Garland. And then my Aunt Ruby Houston, who was OSS, worked for R.L. Thornton, who was allegedly at Murkison's house the night before. I think that's Dad's gateway into the CIA. Then he came home. I have a picture of what he looked like then and the car he was driving. I would love for someone to find it in all these photos. It's a 1957 Dodge Coronet, gold and white Fantail. And he did not like talking about it. He was scared to death to talk about it because he was told not to. And the one time I accidentally uncovered an operation in another town when I was a publisher, my dad had them come talk to me, and I was 37 years old at the time, going through a divorce with my first husband. And I asked, how did they know what I saw of this man counterfeiting money? And they gave me 24 hours to get my business out of there. And Dad said, they've always watched you and they always will because of the things I did. I said, well, why did you get to live? And so many other people died. And he pointed to his desk, and there was a picture of Neil Armstrong stepping foot on the moon and a little piece of negative. And he said, Chana, they only had one chance, one time to get that film processed right. Good question.
Wow. All right, let's open it up. Are there any questions that you guys would like to ask Shanna, on this?
I mean, ask me anything, put me on the spot, pick this apart, somewhere this fits in. I don't know where all of this fits in. I just know what he told me and all these things he left me and the documentation. I mean, when he told me that Walt Disney funded part of the trip to the Antarctic, I thought that's really a stretch, Dad. And then when he dies, I get copies of the orders of him to go work with Walt for 3 weeks. So Walt would give money to the Navy to help fund this huge trip to set a base up down there.
Hey, Jenna, there's a comment, or there's a question in the comment section from Tina Valen.
Okay, let me see if I can see it. Explain as best you can what evidence your father has of the day of the assassination. Did he take pictures of the assassination or the assassination? Any boxes or negatives that remain? No, he could not keep any of it or he would not be alive. He said that he did his job and that was it. He was to keep his mouth shut beyond the grave. I have had people in Europe tell me that they've seen the other Zapruder film. I don't know what that is. Last fall, a man from Brazil, Dixon Medeiros, contacted me and provided me an image they believe Dad took. We're still analyzing it before we release it. I held a Zoom with Robert Groden, Gary Shaw, and some others to look at this picture, and you can see a man standing by a fence with a rifle. I would like to get it in the hands of a few other researchers. I've used my forensic skills. I'm stunned. He believes some of it was caught on the end part of the Zapruder if you don't look at the part that's been cropped out. But good question. I don't have the answers to everything. I just know what he told me and what he left behind.
Did he ever tell you where he was at when he was filming the motorcade? I assume he was filming the motorcade.
The question is, he is assuming that your father was filming the motorcade, and where was he directly? If did he take you and show you where he was?
Yes, he was standing next to one of the shooters, about 7 feet to his left and back a little bit.
And what would the reference point be? Like the corner of the fence, or?
No, not the corner of the fence. It was to the left of the shooter, not toward the corner. The shooter was more toward the corner.
Okay, so your father was to the, if you were looking from the back to the front, your father was to the shooter's right?
The shooter's left. I'm doing it from the perspective of my father while we were standing there at the fence when he was explaining it to me, as if we're looking at the motorcade.
So the question would be, one of the participants out here, wouldn't he be closer to the corner of the fence?
No, the shooter was to my dad's right. If I'm at the fence, the shooter was near the corner. Dad is to the shooter's left.
Hold on.
What do we got? All right, we're throwing some pictures up here so that we can get a pretty good idea of.
This is Spartacus on the black and white one, number 3.
He really did not like talking about it, but I remember when we went down there and the look on his face.
Okay, Jenna, so are you talking about right in this side or
No.
this side?
Further to the right, 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 right in there. Right in there.
Gary Shaw is in the audience, and so is Robert Groden. And you said you had talked to both of those individuals?
Yes, yes, sir. And Gordon Ferry came to my house when President Trump was still in office, because I had said the right thing. And we talked for 3 days, 18 hours. He believes he is an amazing man. He was on the receiving end of my dad's work over Cuba during the Bay of Pigs thing. And we shared some information. Then we made a 45-minute video in case something happened to me. And he has custody that he's working on his book. And I believe David Denton has seen that as well.
Are there any other comments, questions? Yes, right here.
Believe Lee Bowers had he saw 4 people, 2 pairs of men behind the fence. There were 2 in uniform.
Which one, Brian?
Uniform, who wear uniforms like the guys out of the
Right there.
That's what he said.
Here.
They were over in that area that you just said. They were there, the other 2 guys were on the long side, the west side.
If I could get pictures of my dad, what he looked like out there back then, and the car, if we could, and people call that the hard hat man, but that's not really a hard hat. And that man's wearing glasses. My dad had glasses at that time. I don't know about the hard hat man, and I'm not sure about, I do know that's Badge Man, but in the 80s, I worked with artist Menzel, Bill Menzel's wife, who was supposed to be where Tippett was when he got shot. And we've had some in-depth conversations. She's in her late 80s now. And her husband was pallbearer at Tippett's funeral. And we've talked in depth about where Bill should have been and not Tippett. And I have a Dallas police officer that's retired that has documents from his interrogation of Ruby that was hidden from the feds that I'm supposed to visit with in the next week, including sketches that Ruby made. So I still have some more homework to do on this. Once I come out with the story, I have people that want to talk to me or give me things that they're concerned, but they're ready now. They're in their sunset years, like my dad. He wanted to talk. He wanted, I guess, to relieve his soul of things he was forced into doing and under the guise of being a patriot and protecting our country.
Shauna, one of the comments we had here was that Lee Bowers, who was in the railroad tower behind the picket fence, probably about 98 feet behind or 98 yards behind the picket fence, said he saw 2, what he believed were officers, police officers, or at least dressed in officers' uniforms at the right-hand corner of the picket fence area, and then 2 other individuals down by the railroad overpass.
You have to understand, my dad had only been out of the Navy. He wasn't really out of the Navy. His DD-214s dated the next day. And then his final time and grade was in 65. But Dad didn't have a lot of civilian clothes. And he had Navy khakis and he had Navy darts as well. And I can get pictures out there of him and the car and see if people could start pouring through this and see if they see him. It's 5'9", ruddy complexion, sometimes wore glasses in the car, and see if it can be located.
Is that what you believe he was wearing that day? Navy khakis and a Navy jacket?
I believe so, and he took his Navy trench coat with him. And I could pull up a possible picture of that. One moment, see if I can.
While you're looking for that, let me see. Are there any other questions? Because we've got to move along here, guys.
And I welcome any calls on this. My email is Chana Gail Willis, CHANA Willis @gmail.com. My cell phone number is 903-816-3303. And in case any of those spooks are watching and irritated with me, hey, I'm spreading sunshine, and it's the truth, and it's my dad's story. And, just like St. John Hunt and Gary Powers Jr. and the others who have paid an immense sacrifice more than I have, I got to keep my dad. St. John did not get to keep his mom. Okay.
Okay, Shauna, we have one last question, and then we're going to end it here. Yes, ma'am. The question is basically a clarification on what your father's connection was to and with Lee Harvey Oswald.
He told me Lee was on his team. Lee was naval intelligence. I have records showing where the AARB got the military to confirm they destroyed some of his Army records. Some of Lee Oswald's Army records were destroyed and could not be looked at by the House Select Committee on Assassination. He said whoever made a mistake was going to be the patsy. Whoever screwed up would be the one that went down. And I said, so it was orchestrated. And he said, yes. I said, who was behind this? Who was the ultimate person behind this? And he told me LBJ. And he told me the ultimate reason why, which is what Gordon Ferry and the people that have talked with me that I can't put in the book. But y'all are real close to the answers why.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do, we're going to end this session right here. Could you give a round of applause for Chana Willis? Chana, again, thank you very much. And
Thank
we
you for having
appreciate
me.
all that you're going for. Look forward to your book.
Thank you.
And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to